No, that shirt did not say what you guys thought it said. Link in the description to our apparel store over at Forge from Freedom. A portion of the proceeds of sale over there go to support the channel. If you guys want cool apparel, then by all means hop over there and buy something. If you guys don't want cool apparel, then I don't really care. We also have a Patreon page where all our giveaways happen. But anyway, this video is going to serve as our after-action report for the recent handgun course that I took at Shaw Strategies. My friend Daniel Shaw is the owner and CEO of that company, but also the instructor for the course, and it took place at the Alliance Police Training Center in Alliance, Ohio, and it was their Handgun Vitals course, a course that he's been working on for quite some time, and it's basically a course that looks at raising the bar as far as aptitude and all things handgun shooting. So definitely a very pertinent course for anybody who's looking to get better with a handgun. And the other thing I'm going to say is I'm going to try and keep this video short and sweet, because the internet has told me that my after-action reports are too long and too thorough. And so there you go. You can blame the internet for incomplete information. But anyway, I also set my GoPro wrong and handed it to people to film, and apparently I didn't get very many videos. I got lots of stills, but I did get some stuff, so we'll throw it in there as applicable. But it rained for most of the course. There was a threat of rain, or there was rain for the majority of the course, which also helped with a lot of other things. Usually we say if it's not raining, it's not training. So I happen to like weather when I go to training courses. I think it adds an extra element to it that you can't get, shooting on your indoor range or on your flat range. So anyway, we evaluate courses here at VSO on five criteria: mindset, tactics, skill, and gear. And we're going to, and then the fifth one is the X factor, or what the impressions of the instructor, so to speak, the aptitude of the instructor. Starting off with gear. So gear for this class was pretty low. The emphasis on gear was pretty low, and just about any class these days, any modern firearms course should probably be pretty low on the gear. You don't need somebody to stand there and talk to you about how awesome their sponsored gun is or something like that. I would ding a course quite a bit if they stood there and expounded about this piece of equipment that they were running and why it was the greatest thing on the planet. That's really not what you're there for. So I would ding any course that does that. That was not present in this class. The only exception to that sort of thing would be like if you're taking like a night vision course, right? That should be probably pretty heavy on the gear, right? Because you're there to learn how to use it, But anyway, gear for this class is pretty low. I think you needed good guy credentials, so law enforcement credentials, or CCW or something like that, basically to make sure that you're not a piece of crap that's rolling in there to take advantage of the tactical situation. Belt, comfortable shoes, a couple extra magazines, 800 rounds of ammunition, non-flexible holster, right? And a handgun. So I took the class with actually two guns, two Canik specifically. I started out the course with the Canik TP9 SFT, which is the threaded barrel mod, and I actually switched away from it because during the early phases of the course, which we'll get to here in a second when we talk about skill, I was having a hard time with the suppressor height sights on it, doing some things. I had to do a lot of guesswork. It was influencing my ability to perform in the class, so I switched away from that gun to my Canik TP9 SF Elite. Mouthful, I know, but that is like the Glock 19 size gun. Much better time, and I was able to shoot much more accurately with that gun and not focus on the offset of the sights and things like that, because it wasn't a new gun to me. I've been using it for a while, so it allowed me to focus more on what Dan was having us do. So, and I would suggest that if you're going to take this class, that you take a gun that you're familiar with, so that you're not doing a whole lot of that crap during the class. I was trying to double dip. I was trying to get some round count up on a gun that I had in for testing and see if I could do that, and it just wasn't working for me. So there's some data there. But you really, that's about all I have to say about the gear component. Now, skills. This class was super heavy on the skills. So I want to say it was probably one of the more intensive courses that I've taken when we're talking about emphasis on skill. And what I mean by that is it was a progressive course. It started out teaching absolute perfection at the beginning of the class, and then it advanced from there. And in doing so, it built on the very first lesson of the day to the very end of the day. It was the very first lesson was applicable to the very last drill that we did on the second day. So skill, very, very high. Definitely something that if you don't shoot a handgun well, you should go take that class, because it's going to teach you to shoot a handgun very, very well. There were some people, and I was not doing so good at the beginning of the class because of the things I mentioned, that we were able to zero that down quite a bit. So, and in fact, as far as skills are concerned, I learned a new one. So this class is good for all ranges of people that have various experience levels. Normally, when what I've been taught when I shoot is the trap the trigger technique, which is pull the trigger to the rear, hold it, gun goes bang, gun cycles, comes back down, you see the sights, you let the trigger out to the reset, and then you begin your trigger squeeze again. What this technique is, I don't think he had an actual term for it, but it's somewhat more efficient in that it takes a little bit to get used to, and I finally kind of caught the hang of it by the end of the class. But then I went to shoot earlier today, and I found myself dropping right back in to the trap the trigger technique. But what it is you initiate the firing sequence, the gun fires, you race off the trigger as the gun is recoiling, get back to the trigger, push it to the reset, and then as soon as your sights level back on the target, you're ready to shoot again. So there's some efficiency going on there, and I found in my personal experience that a lot of times when I rush a shot, it's because I find myself with the trigger pinned to the rear, and then I need to take another shot, and I rush myself off the trigger to the reset, and then punch the trigger. And if you use this technique that Dan was teaching, then I found myself not doing that, not being in that situation where I've got the trigger pulled to or pinned to the rear, and I have to go through the reset and pull the trigger. I just have to squeeze. I just have to break the trigger if I find the need to shoot again. So it makes you makes you much faster on the break when you have to take a follow-up shot. So definitely good on that one. That's something that I took away from the class, definitely, and I will try my best to use it in the future. Moving on to tactics. So there's lots of tactics taught in the class, lots of skills taught in the class. I can't cover them all here because the internet will be mad at me for that fictitious time limit that exists in people's minds, where their attention span kind of evaporates. But one of the things that I really appreciated and I found very, very challenging was the integration of the crowd, so to speak. So there was lots of emphasis on, like, okay, so you just got into defensive shooting and you just smoked somebody, and now you're standing there with a pistol in your hand with smoke rolling out of the end of it, and everybody else is standing around like, my ears hurt, there's stuff just happened, you know, what's going on? And there you are. There's 1,000 cell phones laying around. There's a dude laying on the floor bleeding. You've got a pistol. Everybody looks at you and be like, that dude's got a gun. So the addition of the crowd element and teaching you how to manage that situation was definitely something that I thought was pretty cool and exceptionally challenging. And to the point where I would say that, if I'm completely honest, I failed the last drill because I was not doing a very good job. I was pretty tired at that point in time, 2 days of training, running all over the place, fairly dynamic course, especially on the second day. And, you know, the mindset started to break down a little bit towards the end of the course, and I just was not firing on all cylinders, and I was not performing well. And that is one aspect that I'd say that I need to work a little bit on. That's definitely sure. A lot of the marksmanship can be there, but you know, the final drill was somewhat challenging to me, and it really went into that tactics side of thing. Now, as far as mindset is concerned, I've taken classes that are a little bit heavier on the mindset than this one, but that also plays into it, the dealing with the crowd side of things. But one of the things that was very well driven home is that you should visualize these targets as living human beings. So that emphasis was made, and that is my baseline that must be in any defensive handgun course, is that the instructor wants you to envision that this is a violent encounter. It's not just a piece of paper. And there were things that were done in the class to raise that adrenaline level, to try to make it a little bit more applicable to the situation, to kind of raise that pulse a little bit. And that definitely goes into putting you into the correct defensive mindset. Now, the instructor. You can read Dan's bio on the internet all day long, cool. But one of the things that I wanted to say about this, and that it was, this is the first course I've ever taken from him, and I've worked with Dan on, several projects over the course of the years, just like, but we'd never spend that amount of time together. So this was my first long time experience with him over the course of a couple days. And what I wanted to say is, a lot of times in my experience, there's a lot of military instructors out there. And I didn't mention that he was in the Marine Corps. He was a Marine. A lot of military instructors out there have been brought up in an environment where they are an offensive combat force. So that was their job. That's what they were supposed to do. They were supposed to go places that we don't want to go find bad guys and kill them. That's what their job was. And that is an offensive situation. You are literally an offensive combat force. You were supposed to go out and do that. That is completely different than a defensive CCW civilian or a defensive law enforcement officer or anything like that. So the criteria in which you operate in that environment in an offensive combat situation are completely different than that of a defensive combat situation. And I find, in my experience, that by and large, military instructors, or instructors that got a lot of experience in the United States military, have a very difficult, or any military for that matter, have a difficult time transitioning between the two. That was not the case in this course. So separating out the stuff that is pertinent to a CCW carrying civilian or a defensive situation officer of the law, stuff like that, is completely different than jumping out of helicopters and shooting people in the face. Okay? Completely different. Dan did an excellent job of not doing that. I never once heard come out of his mouth something to the effect of, well, we did it that way in the Marine Corps. So if you ever hear somebody say something to the effect of, well, it was good enough for the military, it's good enough for me, when you ask a question, if they don't give you the answer and they give you something like that, well, in my opinion, that's a cop-out. And what I mean by that is there are really three scenarios here. Either they don't think that you need to know that information, they're being lazy and don't want to take the time to explain it to you, which is, maybe it will hold up the course, right? That could be a thing. So the answer should then at that point in time be, hey, get to me on a break period. It's going to take me a minute to explain that. So we can do that then when we're stuffing magazines or something like that, instead of doing it right now and holding up the course. Got that. Or they don't know. So those are the three scenarios right there. So any answer like that is a cop-out. That never once happened in this course. And in fact, Dan went out of his way to say that he believes that a lot of the stuff that they do in the Marine Corps when he went through is actually not relevant today. And to the Marine Corps, not even to a CCW carrying civilian. When we're looking at that, a lot of the time we see, or at least I see, that military instructors have a hard time separating out, hey, this dude is walking around in a defensive capacity. Maybe teaching him team room clearing is not something that we should cover in a level 2 pistol course or something like that. You see what I'm saying? So there's that. Now, as far as continuing with the X factor is concerned, Dan is an excellent communicator, and I don't care how good you are on the range. I don't care how good you shoot, how solid your tactics are. If you don't communicate well, and if you cannot make me understand that thing that is inside your brain, if you can take what's in here and give it to me, then I don't care how good you are not a good instructor. And again, Dan was an excellent instructor in this regard. So I would say that any opportunity that you have, if he's in your area or moving to your area in the next couple months or something like that, then you should definitely take advantage of the opportunity to get some solid training from somebody who definitely has it going on. So he is a cerebral person. He's a problem solver individual, and those are the types of people that you want to pursue when you're talking about training. So anyway, I am definitely way over my time today. I completely evaporated my battery doing this, so I'm going to sign off for today. That was our look at handgun vitals at Shaw Strategies. So thank you for watching the VSO Gun Channel. We'll see you guys on a future video.